everybody. This is Paul Gilbert, and you are watching EVH Gear TV with Eric Broadbent. Should that be louder or softer?
Bring up the mids on your chalkboard there a little bit.
Bring up the what on the what?
Turn up your mids on your chalkboard.
Okay. Good. So... Suddenly everything seems quiet. If I go up a little louder, is that okay?
You can do that for sure. Go ahead, try.
How's that? Is the balance all right?
It's absolutely perfect. I can hear your backing tracks really good. Now, of course, we're getting a mono feed through Skype, but it still does sound very good. Oh, there, now we're talking. Can you...
by Van Halen.
Freaking awesome. That's perfect. You won me over.
Well, I have a chalkboard wall. This is a studio where I shoot a lot of the videos for my online school.
Okay.
And for the longest time, I had the standard issue blue, lightly textured background. And I thought it might be cool to have a chalkboard because then I can do different things if I want to draw a chord diagram or something. As it turns out, I haven't done anything. Well, I guess there was one lesson where I did some music theory stuff, but mostly I just draw amps and drum sets and flags and that kind of thing. My son comes down, he draws monsters.
Very cool. I like that. I could see it being very entertaining for videos. That's great. And obviously helpful, but entertaining as well, too.
I just got to keep the chalk dust under control.
I can imagine. Yeah, you could be covered under her.
Vacuum and that's really all I have. The first Van Halen that I heard was actually filtered through the hands and ears of my uncle.
Okay.
Because my uncle was and still is a great guitar player. And one day he came over to visit, and he picked up my guitar, and he did this. And I thought, wow, my uncle's pretty cool. That's a cool thing he came up with.
Yeah.
And then, a couple months went by, and he mentioned to me, he said, you probably really like this band, Van Halen. You should check out their record. And so I bought it, and I heard that. I was like, hey, that's my thing my uncle was doing. It's sometimes just using the body.
Mm-hmm.
I always make everybody stomp. So, to me, a great and of two, I brought that up. But just out of coincidence, like the accent in Ain't Talk About Love, where it goes,
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's meaningless unless you have the pulse that it relates to. So you got to get Alex Van Halen going on in your, where's his snare? The snare is on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the and of 2, 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and that's so it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So the main axes of that are 1, the and of 2, and 4, and that's a language that I learned from going to school. I didn't know about that particular terminology until I'd been playing, 8 or 9 years, and certainly you can, all the greats, hardly any of them use that language. Just because I'm a teacher, it's nice to have a way to verbalize it. and in a way give somebody a fighting chance if they don't have the instincts. That's the whole thing. That's the most important thing I can do as a teacher, is to help people build the instincts. That because you can't, in real time, you get on stage, you're not going to be thinking and counting, and you can't. It's just going by too quick. If they're not hearing it, I got to figure out, well, how can I make them see it or feel it or some other thing, and hopefully eventually they will hear it, because that's where it really works. I'm trying to think of a star.
Yeah, I know.
I might finger it to with I don't know if I'm using the same fingering, but I use the thumb for hang 'em high. Richie Blackmore was a huge thumb over guy. Just good for a mute string, and just good to the kind of like Hendrixy
Well, I'm going to tell you something. You keep working at it, you're going to be a good guitar player one day.
That's my goal.
Okay, keep at it. I think you have it in you.
Before I leave the planet, I want to do one like blues solo that blues guys will like. I remember in the day, I like in Racer X, I would try to do the Eddie.
Oh, Flying Eddie, yeah.
The one leg one way, one leg the other way, and up.
Yep.
And this was before cell phone cameras, but occasionally someone would videotape us, and I saw myself doing that. It was like, I'm just not built for that one. I found like when I played kind of like Leslie West, if I did my if I just played, really meaningful rhythmic things, it sounded pretty good through the horrible sounding amp.
Yeah,
which is kind of miraculous. Like I could by making good choices with my playing, I could make a bad amp good. And I thought, I just want to have a lot of that all the time, because when you tour, a lot of times we don't bring our own amps. You never know what you're going to get. Yeah. So it's nice to have these kind of indestructible things that are just always going to be cool. Because like when I was trying to imitate Eddie, I always wanted like a real sharp, defined. You could do like actually the Phase 90 helps that. You turn that on and you go like go do your. That's you can't have a lot of bass. Get away with that because it's just too thuddy. But I found when I have a sound that's sharp, I tend to kind of overpick, and the sound influences you. And so I got a couple overdrive pedals that tend to be a lot more. There's a lot more bass attack. Like I'm going to turn the phase shifter off so it's more bass. And when you dig into it, it's sort of it's got this bigger, wider attack. Now that might not be a sound where I want to play super fast picking, but if I want to just do like that's really satisfying for that. Let's see what we've got. Oh, it's connected to something, but I'll unplug that for a minute. Okay. We'll power off. There it is. What we've got? We've got MXR Distortion Plus, which is a fairly, I talked about a sharp sound. That really helps if I want something to be easy to pick, I'll press on that because it just sort of sharpens it up. The phase 90 script with the LED so I can tell that it's on, even when I get earplugs jammed in my ears.
Yep.
And that also helps the sharpness. The Supro Drive, which is a lot more, big, thick, kind of Leslie West, the bassy kind of thing. And then but the nice thing is if you put the MXR into this, you kind of get both. So that's the thing is depending on what order you got. If you turn both these on, then you kind of got thick and sharp at the same time.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah. And this purple one or pink one is a Karma Suture by Catalan Bread. That's in a way similar character to this one, but it's just kind of got its own thing. And maybe a little more sub-low kind of attack and a little, kind of retro fuzz in its own way. It sounds like your amp is about ready to explode sometimes in a good way. And then the Mojo Mojo, which is my go-to, just make a clean amp sound like Malcolm Young. And then I've got a reverb or a delay and a reverb, both TC pedals. So this is a Alter Ego, which is really set kind of like Eddie Van Halen sets his Echoplex back in the day for that little ba-da.
Yeah.
And then the Arena, a brand new one, which I guess is the same as their other Hall of Fame reverb, but it just has some different presets in it.
Right.
And I like it because it's black. And the Voodoo Labs, I've got the logo covered up because I've got Velcro on it just in case I wanted to Velcro something else on top.
Okay.
And this is of course the Superboard 3000. Probably if I had to pick one song that I played more than any other when I was a teenager, not a well-known tune, but it was from the UFO record after Michael Schenker left the band. I think it was called No Place to Run. George Martin, the producer of the Beatles, actually produced this record. And the first song is called Letting Go. And this is the riff. 1, 2, 3. And had a great pick scratch in it, and that was the riff. And for whatever reason, my band sounded good when we played that, and so we would just play it over and over again. Because it's like, man, we listen to this, we sound good. And it was like the first time I sort of had just a group of people, and we would groove. And of course, it had a spot for a solo, and no way I could play the solo that was on the record, which was kind of cool because that was almost every solo I couldn't play. And like when I think back to the cover tunes I learned, I would hardly ever learn the solo because it was usually somebody like Eddie or these amazing players, and it was just uncopyable. Learn something very useful. What key are you in? And the pentatonic scale, and maybe a couple of blues things, and you'd learn to bend it, and you'd have your 2 fast licks, and that would sort of stew for years, and then it gradually becomes something of your own.
If you've got your backing tracks ready to go, why don't you give us a little taste, or maybe tell us what it is that you're going to play for us?
Well, I got to explain this a little bit because I'm not going to be good at it yet.
Okay, all right.
That's always a little scary.
Okay.
Now, this is one of the new things I'm working on is growing up with heavy rock. There wasn't a lot of harmonic adventure. Usually it was like 1 or 2 keys, and as long as you had your Dorian blues together and maybe some natural minor pentatonic, you could kind of get through anything. And lately, from trying to play blues and trying to really make the changes happen, where when you hit the 1 chord, there's certain notes that are nice. And then when you hit the 4 chord, it's different. It's not the same note. And then back to your 1. And then your 5. And the 4. So to know the fretboard like that, was not something that I could do in my teenage years. I mean, I had some good feel and I had some fast stuff, but I really didn't have the fretboard knowledge to navigate a blues. Now every song's got its own thing, and what the blues has taught me is to kind of chip away at the scales that I learned when I went to GIT.
Okay.
Because I might think, oh, it's a major chords. I'll play a major scale, which has 7 notes. Way too many notes than you need for blues stuff. And so I've gradually, as I've studied this stuff, I've come up with, what are the best ones? If I don't need all 7, which my ear tells me I don't, because when I hit certain ones, it's like, that's just something's not right with that. Freddie King wouldn't play that one. Then I start to develop this vocabulary of the ones to emphasize, and to test myself, I'm going to do my own arrangement right now, ladies and gentlemen, of Mercedes-Benz, which is the Janis Joplin song. Now, of course, when she sings it, it's just vocal. There's no chords, so I came up with my own chords, and I'll show you those real quick. I do an E major, and then I do an E7 with a third in the bass. It's kind of a cool chord. Then your A, which is the 4 chord, back to the 1. Won't you buy me? And then up to the 5 chord, B7. And then I do something kind of tricky. I go to the C sharp minor. And then a chord inversion, which is E major with B in the bass. So you get this descending bass line. Then F sharp 7 with a third in the bass, A sharp. And then an A minor 6, which has got some really cool melodic minor possibilities to it. And then an A sharp diminish. And then back to your E over B, and then an A over B, which is the chord of the 70s. How deep is your love? And then back to your E. So I'll play that just so you can hear the rhythm. I'm going to turn my phase 90 on to get groovy. 1, 2, here's the rhythm. That's what I'm trying to play over, and then I've got to navigate that. I can't just stay in one key. Okay. I mean, maybe I could a little bit, but it's got to sound nicer, like I'm actually know what I'm doing, if I play from E major to that 7 and then to the A, back to major, and then maybe the A. C sharp minor, E major, F sharp, and then that crazy A minor 6. Diminish. Let me put that all together. 1, 2, 3. so there's more thinking than I'd like in there.
Okay.
I'm going to get it to the point where I can really feel all of it the more I practice it. So I'm having really a good time with that. It's opened so many doors, and I'm excited about it, as you can see, because I can't stop talking.
Bubba James earlier in the chat says that you're not so good at what you're kind of preparing us for, as you said, is better than most records out there. So that's very, very nice compliment.
See, if I pick a Beatles song like, actually, I think I played this, but and then to have the bass note, to be able to put those two, just have the bass note and the melody.
Okay.
I got it, but it's just like, like walking through molasses.
Yeah.
It really is a lot of brain work. And with the kazoo, I'd have it, would have had it a minute ago. So that's sort of my goal, is to be able to visualize, because you can, if you know your chord tones. I mean, most of that was just playing a third or a fifth or a root of the chord, but to be able to find it, and again to be vibrato ready, because if I want to do a convincing performance of it, I can't just hit it.
No.
It's not like running the bases and okay, I hit first base, so I'm safe. No, you got to do it with style. It's music, so. And on single notes, I can have a little more chance of being vibrato ready. But I'd like to get the bass note in there too, because it's just so satisfying.
It is.
That's one of the best things about being a musician, is your own radio.
Yeah.
Whatever song you love, you pick it up and you play it. Speaking of gear, my new invention is a slide magnet. Yes,
Andrew Bonica from Line 6 wanted me to ask you about that. You showed it to him at the recent show.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
I got a bunch. I put some. Well, I had my Guitar Tech mount magnets inside the body.
Okay.
Route out a little track in the pickguard, and you just get a steel slide, and it's pretty strong. Because occasionally I'll accidentally hit it when I strum, and I don't want it to go falling off on the floor. So it'll withstand a pretty good hit. And fortunately, the finger that I use is my second finger, which is pretty easy to get to it.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, where's my lick? What's the Van Halen one?
Take Your Whiskey Home, or Could This Be Magic? Dude.
Dirty movies for you there.
That's perfect.
Lights, camera, action! A big one is to be able to play a muted note, which if I did that with my mouth, it'd be and then answer it with a note that's not muted. So it's ba, and that's, you wouldn't believe how rare that is. From people, they've been messed up by pricing scales where everything's the same. And in expressive music, not everything's the same. It's really nice to have that flow of muted notes and short notes and long notes, even if they're all the same value. I mean, even if they're all eighth notes, you can have a staccato one and a legato one, and that having an instinct and a technique to make that happen just breathes life into it. So, for example, a lot of times I do stuff that's shuffled. Shuffles, that really helps. So I might do something like 1, 2, 3, 4. And you hear the end, short, long. That's. I hope I made it seem easy and obvious, but that's rare.
It's perfect.
It's like same, and not swinging, and so that kind of thing is really helpful to people, and helpful to me. I get so much time the teacher always learns the most, so I get a lot of benefit from that.
Oh yeah.
Besides that, I do just try to connect to melodies. So this morning I was practicing. Again, I'm not any good at it yet, but I was trying to get the melody to Blackbird.
Yep.
The what was it? Where is it? And then and then there's, I'm not playing it as well as I was this morning, but there's little slide tricks in there, and if you learn them, they're so cool. And of course, went to the line of the dot back night. That's what you got to know. That's coming.
Sassy.
That's because that's a big shift.
You gotta be ready for it.
Stuff that's really interesting to me because it's a horizontal way of looking at the fretboard, and it's not going to sound the same if I went, if I did it like that. The note's there, but it's not as expressive as that. So that's the thing. I'm always trying to find the expression and play more like a vocalist because fortunately, I'm a bad enough singer where I've got to do something about it, and that something's going to happen here. Hey, everybody, this is Paul Gilbert, and you are watching EVH Gear TV with Eric Broadbent.